Welcome back, you guys. This is Andrea with From Mrs. to Ms. I have someone very special with me here today. I have Sandy Sembler. Hi, Sandy. How are you?
I am wonderful. Good to see you.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining me. So, just to give you guys a little bit of background on Sandy so you know what's going on here, Sandy is known as the woman's embodiment expert. I love this already. What a great statement. We could just stop there and we'd be great. So she combines somatics and gender dynamics in her SakredShe Method to help women reclaim their unique voice and intuition. Rooted in her personal journey and teachings from renowned mentors, the method empowers a woman to harmonize masculine and feminine energies. I can't wait to talk about that. So Sandy's philosophy emphasizes how do we do anything is how we do everything, promoting deep transformative experiences. She also co-created the art of creative relationships, focusing on healing and transformation for couples. Through SakredShe, Sandy nurtures a global sisterhood for women to evolve and discover their authentic selves, and she aims to touch 12 million lives in 5 years through her programs, coaching, books, and events. Wow. There it is.
Well, there it is. And there she is. And thank you. Wow, just hearing that again, I get goosebumps every time.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that years ago when I owned a mortgage company that this would be my business? So
Oh
who would
my
have,
gosh.
right, right. So here we are. So thank you
Yes.
for having me.
Absolutely. Well, a couple of things to touch on there. First of all, because I do want to find out how this all started in the beginning. You just talked about a mortgage company. I'm actually from the mortgage world.
Really? Okay.
I've kind of put that out there. So I've really been focusing on my podcast lately. I've been in the mortgage for 20 plus years on the operations side. So
Okay.
I know how that is, how volatile that business is, which is why I'm trying to run from it and do things I'm passionate about. Right. So I can totally get that. So let's start at the beginning. What significant event happened in your life that triggered the start of this career with helping women to kind of reclaim their voice and their intuition?
I've been thinking about that question, and thank you, by the way, for your masculine. I've got to tap being so prepared because my feminine is so excited and feels so held that I really feel I can bring my art to you. So I want to say thank you for that, and we'll tap into that a little bit more here while we spend some time together. You know,
Perfect.
I it actually is, back in the day, when I was 12 years old and my dad left our family and everything got turned upside down, literally in one afternoon. It really, all the work I've done really since even this biography the introduction that you just read was written. There's so much that's happened even that since then when I can go, wow, I can really see that even back then things changed where everything on a dime just shifted. How I got involved in the masculine feminine energetics, how SakredShe was born, was essentially like I'm a serial entrepreneur because of what happened to me as a child. Like
Mhm.
I was, throwing papers at 12 and a half years old to help my mom pay the bills. So I have
Cool.
always been a little scrapper. I've always been someone that you want in your foxhole. Like I very resourceful. I know how to get things done. Um,
Yes.
I mean, truly, really do. And because I weave a lot of conversations around trauma into my work, little T trauma, big T trauma. And
Mhm.
as I'm sharing my story, I just want to make sure I just kind of touch on that too. Because what happened for me is that I've been, working hard most of my life.
Yeah.
How I came into masculine feminine energetics and understanding and wanting to teach it is that I had amassed a lot of success in the professional world. Success in my personal relationships, but not that relationship that I truly was with my heart's desire, my heart soulmate desire. And when I got in front of Tony Robbins 11 years ago at an event,
Mhm.
after I had another failed relationship that looked a lot like the ones before, my best friend who knew Tony's work as well said you need to get in front of someone who actually can really be strong with you and firm with you because you have a tendency to kind of run the room,
Ah.
So I was like, and she was right. She was right. I had left an abusive marriage, a couple years before. I was
Mhm.
in therapy for several years, zhuzhing it out, talking things out.
Mhm.
But I have found myself a couple years later in another relationship that seemed very similar, like two sides of the same coin. One was
Yeah.
physical abusive, one was more covert abusive. And I couldn't figure out how I got there. I just didn't understand it. I had started another business, sold my mortgage company, started another business that was successful. And I just was scratching my head going like, how did I end up here again?
Hmm.
And so if you're, I was familiar with Tony's work from way back in the day. I had bought his infomercial, something off his infomercial when I was 19. Here I was, years later.
Yeah.
And he really was exactly what my friend Rachel said. You need someone who's going to like tap into your psyche, because these are just patterns that you're picking up on. All those years I was in therapy. I mean, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it well. And I literally was 2 to 3 times a week in therapy. No one ever talked to me about essentially like the patterns and the brain and the nervous system. It was really more about just get out of the relationship. Very
Mm-hmm.
similar, by the way, when I had an eating disorder in high school, which was all about trying to control my environment because our home life was so crazy. I needed to control something. No one ever talked to me in all those treatment centers like, why am I actually trying to control something in my life? It was all around food. And if you know anybody who has disordered eating, I believe is what they call it now, you don't need to talk to them about food or exercise.
Yeah.
We really talk about why are we showing up in those same patterns, right? These self-sabotaging way that we're attempting to control. So, for me, what I did is when Tony and I went, toe to toe for 4 hours.
Hmm.
He really helped me understand that a lot of my success, a lot of my wealth, a lot of my all the things was really due to a trauma response, because I was out there just hustling to get things done as a way, tunnel vision, to not feel what I needed to feel. And Tony's work is really great. He's a gateway to a lot of other work. He kind of dropped me there and I was like, wait a minute. What did you just say about masculine, feminine? I'm a woman. What do you mean? All of that. And so I had sold my business and I was in a privileged place where I was able to set it up where I could go travel around the world, study with teachers, understanding, because I was leading a group of women at the time of other entrepreneurs and still consulting and coaching, but more about business, not relationship, but business is relationship.
Right.
How we do anything is how we do everything. Meaning, if you're good with people, you think people in relationship and business want you, isn't that the way it is at home? And it is until it's not. And I tease it apart, and really, 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 understand to the nuance of why that is. And that's the gift I have, because of my childhood.
Yeah.
I am super hyper vigilant. I am very aware of my surroundings. Because of what I went through as a kid. And I don't say that as a victim at all.
Hmm.
What I mean is that the more that I experience life, especially in my current relationship, I recognize too a lot of the things that I thought were my little idiosyncrasies, my little nuances of my personality, are actually my superpowers. And I've also understood too, and to be honest with you, I've been on like 10 podcasts in the last 2 weeks, and I'm just now starting to talk about some current events that are happening. So I'll share some things while we're together.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah, especially because of the nature of what your content is about, which I can
Hmm.
relate to, because I help women, stay in the relationships and look at themselves, fall in love with them again, and then be able to turn that love towards their partner if they're in a relationship.
Hmm.
Sometimes they need to leave that relationship, and I also have been that woman who needed to leave that relationship, several times over, whether it's in a committed relationship in marriage or in just true partnership, right? So
Hmm.
it's a long answer to your question, but as you and I talked about in our pre-interview, I
Yeah.
mean, it just will flow, because in our feminine, we are in flow. And if we try to compartmentalize things, it doesn't feel natural. And
Yes.
there needs to be some structure, as I mentioned at the beginning of this cast. And I work really well now because I know my body super well. I
Hmm.
know what makes her happy and I know
Hmm.
what makes her uncomfortable. And there have been many times, including even this past few years, in my current relationship I'm in, where even though I know what I know and I'm an embodiment expert and I'm known for that out there, where my my brain overrode my body, because if I had to face some of the things I needed to face, I was going to have some major changes in my life. Even though I know what I know, even though I've worked with thousands of women around the world, even though this vessel God gave me, it was screaming danger, danger, like whatever, like I'm sorry. So and that's been interesting for me too, to bring that forth
Yeah.
because, you know, well, we'll because the feminine in all of us, we want to be seen, heard, understood, and we want to feel safe.
Yeah.
And that's whether you're a man or a woman. It's the feminine in all of us. We really want to know that we are accepted, fully expressed in our tears and our fears, even in a sacred temper tantrum. And I can explain, what that means somewhere in
Yeah.
here if you'd like to know more. Because it's not just a matter of being able to be bitchy and then
Yep.
someone take it. If your heart's open, then anything's really game in that space. But there is a way that our emotions can literally not, and you've interviewed lots of people. I've done research. I've listened to some of your content. Beautiful way that you interview.
Thank
I
you.
experience you making people feel very safe to be able to be expressed. You have a way of asking penetrative questions in a way that doesn't feel like it's in a staccato gun way, where it feels almost like you're hugging someone. So there's a container
Mm.
in your questioning where us in the middle of this are like, yeah, let's go. We can share.
Oh,
And
that's beautiful. Thank you for saying that.
yeah, and it's a gift because I've been in lots of different people's spaces and not everybody do I feel that way. So
Yeah.
and I'm very attuned to that because of my past and because of what I do. So does that answer your question? How I share?
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
you gave me so many wonderful nuggets in there. Just looking back because there's so many things that I try to touch on with the audience that they've gone through. And so, just using that word embodiment, you embody all of these things, which is why I was excited to talk to you and kind of go through all of these things with you because you've put in the work, you've gone through the trauma in your life, you've dealt with that, the abuse in the relationships and turning yourself around, finding your femininity within the masculinity, just
Yes.
so many different things. And so I think that's super cool. So it was a great response because you covered a
Good.
lot.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Yeah, you
did.
you
I
covered a lot in there for me, so that was great. So tell us, like, what exactly is Sacred She, and like what types of things do you do in order to help people and help women with that? Tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about that.
Well, consulting with women in business and launching businesses for years with others. I mean, I really didn't realize that I was using the methodology, but I was just
Mhm.
using different terminology because I mean, our feminine intuition, we know that we know that we know, and
Yes.
everyone we know it's heartfelt leadership, right? Sacred She is essentially my healing journey, and I know that I personally believe that this is Earth School. Our time here on this planet is our time to be studying. It doesn't mean we have to be in a classroom because we can walk outside and have an interaction with our neighbor. And boy, was that the best lesson I've ever had. Do you know what I mean? If
Yes.
if we're open to it, if we're aware of it, not everybody wants to go that deep, sister. And I can tell you, when I started doing this work, I've always been deep. I've always been a little left of center. I understand now, like even being in church, Southern Baptist, South Carolina, like my hand would just rise in the music. My mom would be like, "What are
What
you
do you
doing?"
do
I
and
didn't
put
know
that
what I was
down?
doing. Like I didn't realize how much I would feel. I was feeling.
Yeah.
And now I realize that it's such a gift because now people pay me money to help them tap back into the
Yeah.
emotions that we were born with. So Sacred She is really my healing journey. And it's not just, oh, I went through that trauma back then.
Mhm.
It's even what I've experienced in my current relationship where we believe the last 5% of healing happens in relationship. And it's great if the relationships will stay together and you can actually work through it. But many people will leave the relationship right when it's getting good,
Mm.
when you're realizing, oh, that's not really about the dishwasher, or that's not really about the bill didn't get paid. That's about, oh my God, we didn't have insurance growing up because this happened. So whenever we get a late bill, it's
Mhm.
not it's not just about the late bill. It's about the late bill from way back then.
Triggers it.
And so
Yeah.
it triggers it, right? So, and do you have a relationship where you can talk about these things and not take it personally?
Mhm.
The Sacred She Method is all these different modalities that I've studied under and then really made it into my own to be able to bring it forth because like I said, I was seeing a very prominent therapist here in our area for years. I mean, she was even written in like our marital settlement agreement that she was going to like see everyone. I mean, talk about like a cash cow. And
Yeah.
like I said, we never really went through the reason why I was there in the first place, except, I mean, which is, fine up to a point. Talk therapy is good up to a point,
Yep.
but I needed to understand the body. That's why you'll somatics, somatics, which is basic an embodiment. Like, how are we actually, thank you, Zoom, how are we actually feeling into the moment? Are we showing up as that person?
Yeah.
So Sacred She is essentially my healing journey, including like what I'm sharing with you now. I mean, real
Mm.
life time of, that last 5% of, what John, my husband, and I have experienced over the last year or so, that we never would have thought that, buying a new house would have caused so much trauma. I mean, I've owned real estate, lots of properties, thousands of properties. He's corporate America. He owned 3 properties. I've owned 1,000. We're getting remarried in our 40s. So we come with a big old truckload of baggage, you know,
Right.
versus if we're 22, 24. So if I was to do it all over again, and I share with women from my own experience, which is why either women really, really love me, or
Yeah.
they're like, oh my gosh, like, what is this all about? But I want to help women, really honestly collapse time, energy, money, and heartbreak sometimes. If I can help shave some of that off without them having to bypass what the lessons they need to learn, then so be it. And so for me, there's a lot of talk about emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Emotional intelligence is to be able to feel another's experience, like empathy, and
Mm.
then be able to validate it, to be able to say, wow, I'm imagining that made you feel really scared when that happened. And that makes sense because, you found out one day that, you know, your house was getting foreclosed, but the day before everything was fine. Of course
Yeah.
you're scared about that happening. That makes so much sense, Sandy.
Yeah.
Right? So
Hmm.
that's so safe for someone to hear. And that also allows a big grace period,
Hmm.
grace, right? And a gray area for there to be I guess I'd say more like lubricant, right?
Hmm.
Lubricant to a joint. I just went through menopause, so we'll say estrogen to our joint, to our glowing skin. Uh,
Uh-huh.
doing hormone replacement, that's a whole nother conversation. Um, but it gives us it puts basically deposits it in the love tank. And so emotional intelligence is empathy, compassion, being able to feel another person's experience. Can you have a conversation without getting defensive?
Yeah.
I'm seeing honestly a whole, I know this wasn't on our list of topics, but I don't think you'll mind this.
Not at all.
A whole list of women coming to work with me who, depending on their age, generally a little, in their 50s, like I am,
Uh-huh.
meeting men who are meeting men in a dating space, not women who have already been in their relationship for a while, because
Yeah.
I work a lot with women who are already in relationship, but that where the men aren't able to experience criticism. They're not able to have a tough conversation. It's a big mother wound, by the way. It's a mama
Hmm.
wound for sure that hasn't been resolved.
Hmm.
And so there's nothing more annihilating to a woman's spirit when they don't feel seen, heard, understood,
Yep.
right? And so when we're sharing something, we are tapped in to our intuition, and then we bring it to a partner or a friend or a
Hmm.
coworker or a boss or whomever, and they're not able to receive it. It can be painful to the soul.
Yeah.
So so it's interesting. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
curious
And
like
w-
done there.
well, I agree with you on that. I think that it's really hard, especially in our age range right now, like you said, because those that are dating, I've been in this,
Yeah.
area for a while now. And, when you are dating men who are older, or, vice versa for men dating women that are older, you get into this phase where everybody's stuck in their ways. They're used to doing the things they like to do. They're independent. They haven't had to have these hard conversations maybe in a long time.
Right.
They, like you said, they never dealt with their stuff from the past. So all of these things kind of come together, and then they're in their masculine energy. And then we come in, and I'm finding a lot of us women at this age are more in our masculine energy than our feminine, because
Yeah.
we're having to pick up the slack, if you will.
Totally. Well, yeah, there's nothing more masculine, than I mean, mama bear energy. Like, I will cut you if you touch my kid, right?
Yeah.
We can't be, oh, no, it works both ways. I mean, there's a reason why women, how much do we love seeing, a dad playing with his kids?
Yeah.
When a dad's playing with his kids, he's actually in his feminine in that moment. He's being loving and nurturing. It's necessary. There's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with it. In fact, it's beautiful. We need more men who are more in touch with their feminine. Let's face it, right? In all areas, in all areas of life, not just as parents. But we need women who also understand, and that's my work. That was my intervention with Tony, that, I don't have to be so scared of men that I have to compete with men.
Yeah.
And yes, you're right. There are a lot of women, and those are my ideal clients, women generally who are stuck in their masculine thinking, not even realizing I wasn't even aware I was doing it.
Hmm.
And so that's why, the quiz that we offered for one of the CTAs for you, it's sandysembler.com/quiz, allows women to kind of get a feel. Because just because you and I, we're attractive women,
Uh-huh.
doesn't necessarily mean that we're showing up, in our feminine, because we do need our masculine. It got us here on time.
Yeah.
The masculine, as allowed you to ask the questions that you asked, allowed me to review the questions, allowed me to make sure I had the right lighting and my mic was working. I mean, we need that. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's so airy fairy, nothing would get done. And we also need the feminine, which is like leading with our heart. You not being so rigid in the questions that you're like, we're on to something here. Let's go.
Yeah.
That's your intuition. So that emotional intelligence that I mentioned a few minutes ago is important because it allows us to feel into a room, feel into a situation.
Mhm.
I think one of the most stifling things is when I'm around someone that's so rules oriented,
Yes.
that it stifles the energy. I mean, whether you're on a date, whether you have a friend, whether it's a parent, um, in any time, and I'll share this with your beautiful audience, is any time of we feel that we're starting to criticize or control,
Mhm.
um, it's because we don't feel safe. And so when you become more self-aware, you can actually, there's a, within Sacred She, there's different questions to ask yourself. There's a way to actually do some embodiment work to feel into your body. So instead of looking for the outside to make you feel better, something needs to stop, or something needs to happen, or something needs to
Mhm.
start, or something needs to change in order for something else to happen. There's a lot of agency we have from within. And I like to empower women and men. I do work with men when they
Yeah.
come, as in couples, but really for women to realize that, we can be strong. We
Yeah.
can be strong, we can be capable, and there's it's just as powerful to know that you know that you know that you know that you know when it's
Mhm.
actually really safe to lean back.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I'll share something too. One of my certifications, I had the privilege of studying 100 men, the same men for a year. And
Wow.
every month we would have like these different questions and these different theses that we would give them. And maybe it was like intense. Like, I can speak man. Really.
I love it.
And one of the questions was, do men really like strong women? And
Yeah.
99 out of the 100 said that they loved a strong woman who knew who she was, but who was voluntarily vulnerable because she had discernment to trust who she
Mhm.
was giving her heart, body, soul, money to.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
99%. Yes,
And now, and
absolutely
these are,
91.
let's face it, there are some toxic people out there
Mhm.
who want and they need a woman to need them. And but these were men who, they were different walks of life. I mean, these
Yeah.
were men from all different socioeconomic spaces, and they were like, no, I really, really do, I really do love a strong woman. I want to know that I can go out there and do what I need to do, and that she's not so dependent on me that I can't go on my mission,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and there's nuances to that, because the body is so fascinating, because it really does, the body keeps score.
Yeah.
So it really does. And there's, a famous book written around trauma, and it knows. So if you have someone who is traveling from Sunday to Thursday, for example,
Mhm.
and your partner's traveling, on those 4 days, of course, the more feminine being, this works with same-sex couples as well, the more feminine being is going to be more masculine the end of the week, by the time the partner comes home,
Mhm.
right? Because that's what the body's telling it to do.
Yeah.
to. It's got to be, protection and also nurturing. It's got to do both, and it's exhausting, but it's possible. God's given us that gift. And there's a way you can train this gorgeous vessel to be able to be attuned to the partner coming home, where you
Yeah.
want to meet that partner, whether it's after 4 days of travel or an 8-hour workday, and you're sitting down in front of a new partner to be, or your children, and to be able to soften the body in a way so you still can be alert and aware,
Yeah.
and also be able to receive, because the feminine
Mm.
is all about receiving
Yeah.
and lighting up the world.
Yeah. That's our role.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that it's like finding that happy medium there between the two, like you said, because we all want to be, I know I very much go into my masculine energy quite often. And I've really had to work on that to kind of lean out. And like you said, just allow me to be the feminine, allow, them to take care of things. Now that is based on my past experience, my past
Sure.
marriage. I was very dominating in the marriage. I brought home the money. I was, always the one paying the bills and making sure this was taken care of. And so it has, kind of trickled over into my relationship since. And when you get with the wrong, not necessarily the wrong person, but the person that then they see that coming and they take that and they want, they're like, wow, she's like doing all this stuff and they just eat it up. It's crazy how the stuff just messes with you, right? And it can go on into the next relationship until you figure out how
Yeah.
to find that sweet spot where you can be a certain way.
Well, we're born this way, right? We are born
Yeah.
this way. I love how you shared that, because it really is. We will keep repeating the pattern until we heal the wound.
Mm-hmm.
And so, God forbid, if John and I decided that we've learned our lesson, our time together, it's time for us to move on. Whatever that last 5% that wasn't healed, we will recreate that in the next relationship. That's why I
Mm-hmm.
always say, when someone comes to me and they're on the brink of divorce, which has happened quite a bit,
Yeah.
and we have saved a lot of relationships, not because we're so wonderful, but because I actually am tough. I'm tough. I want to empower women, to let them know that it's not necessarily just the other person, what they're doing, or we need to find the right partner. We
Yeah.
have to, there's things within ourselves that we need to heal. And because, just to your point, leaving your marriage and then moving into singledom, it's not a matter of picking a better mate necessarily. It's a matter of, why did you pick that mate in the first place? Why did
Yeah.
you pick someone who would allow you to be the boss?
Mm-hmm.
Because a masculine man, a truly masculine man, actually knows who he is. And actually, there's the new way of being now. It's not just this dominating, he's the man, he's going to earn whatever, all that stuff. It doesn't.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. We fought way too hard for women for that to be the case.
Yeah.
However, like I mentioned earlier, I know real estate.
Yeah.
I know how to buy houses. I know how to flip them. I know how to decorate them. Blah, blah, blah. It would make sense for me to give that to John,
Yeah.
who was in finance at Chase for years. Why would I do that? We tried it and we lost the house because of it years ago. And we're like, why do we do that? Because we got stuck in that gender thing. It's not about that. Whoever's better,
Yeah.
that's better for whatever that is. Like cooking, for example. If he wants to cook, great. It's like, but we can get caught up in that. But the modern day woman, she knows that she knows who she is, and she knows what she knows when to relinquish that control, because she trusts that she's not going to lose herself in a relationship, because she knows her yeses and knows her nos. There is something finite in our yeses and our nos. And I have a practice, we call it practices. Like, you practice piano, you practice yoga,
Yeah.
uh, anything you practice that you can actually really, really embody. So we call them practices. And once
Okay.
I get to know a woman, or a man, but generally women I work with, is I'll get to know you and find out, where's that little wad of hair that my
Mm-hmm.
grandmother would say, where's that wad of hair that we need to tease apart? Like, where is it? So then I can help you rewire your nervous system, rewire the body, so you can feel more pleasure. Because when we feel more pleasure, and I
Yeah.
don't mean just sexual, sensual pleasure, although that's
Mm-hmm.
great too, but I
Right.
mean, how do you find pleasure even in this moment of me talking to you now? How can
Mm-hmm.
I find more pleasure in in this time that we're together,
Mm-hmm.
versus it being something that we have to do? It's like, this is something I get to do.
Yeah.
And just even that languaging alone, but even like I'm standing, I mentioned that I'm at my little beach place. I mean, I'm kind of wild hair and, I've
Yeah.
got my dog at my feet and I'm standing on my sheepskin, which is nice and fluffy. I've got my candle, my bubble water. I mean, if I'm choosing, to be here in your presence, which is such a gift, I'm going to actually make sure it's as pleasurable as possible, which is why I don't take every invitation that I'm offered. If I'm the one tossing out my handkerchief, if I'm
Hmm.
asking if I could be on as a guest, I'm making sure that the energy feels right.
Yeah.
And when I'm working with someone who's dating, it's the same thing. It's the
Mm.
same thing. You want to practice being in a relationship. It makes absolutely no sense to me why someone would be on a date with someone and withhold if something tastes good. Like, why not taste it and be like, yum. Like,
Yeah.
but it starts with us like tapping into like why are they not allowing themselves to be so expressed. Some of
Right.
that's their you know just how they were raised, or they don't want to be seen, but yet their feminine's wounded because all feminine wants to be seen. Look at kids. All kids are feminine primarily until they go through puberty.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah.
So that was a lot. That was
No, it's great. And
okay.
you're right. This is a very pleasurable conversation. First, I love you
Thank
being in
you.
in
Yeah.
my foxhole. I like being in your foxhole.
Yay.
Uh, but no, I completely get what you're saying. And I think that's a lot of the things that we don't think about. And I have recently more been thinking about that as I've been dating and I'm growing and learning and trying to be, a little bit more my feminine. I used to pride myself on being this masculine. And
Of
I'm
course.
like, oh,
Same.
well, yeah, we can chat on text, but when he calls me, I give good phone. So he's going to be,
Yeah.
like, I'm
Oh
just
my
going to
God. You know
dominate.
what's crazy? Girl, holy cow. I used to say that too. I give good
I
phone.
give
In
good
the mortgage
phone.
business, the first time I ever had someone, sidebar, you may edit this out, but
Yep.
sidebar, I had somebody because I worked, in the bank for a while, and then
Uh-huh.
I opened up my own company, and I was like, this is great. I can work out of my house. This is awesome. I was so proud of my work ethic, right? Well,
Yeah.
so it was good until it got in
Right.
the way of everything. But I remember the first time I FedExed a package to a client, and it was before we had Zoom, before we had
Mm.
FaceTime or any of that. It was that long ago, which is frightening. But I remember I got off, I was like, wow, I give good phone. Like I don't even have to be in front of it. I literally use that same term.
I love it. I love it. It's
And
such
it
a
started
great
there.
term.
And
Yeah.
it saved me so much time. I mean, I was like living quarantine like before we even knew what COVID was. I mean, it's like,
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah,
oh
I
my
always used
God.
to say that. I'd be like, "Oh, once they call, I've got them. Like I
Yeah.
know that I've got this guy." And that was just this masculine side of me that always just loved to be in control instead of just letting him, take the conversation and kind of put me on a softer side where I can just embrace what he's offering and what he wants to do. So it's been a process of trying to get to that
Yeah.
point. And I think a lot of women really struggle with that of finding that inner balance because in our world today, we're expected to be very, we
Yeah.
have the whole Me Too movement. We have that women want, the feminists, and we want to make as much money. And we have all
Yeah.
of these things that we want to do as women, but we still have to find that little balance to be like, oh, but I still want you to be the hunter and the gatherer, And
Yeah.
so it's a struggle.
Well, I would say this too. I mean, that's why I do what I do, because I
Yeah.
help women, like you, like the way I am and was. And sometimes I can, depending on what's happening in my life, I can find myself tapping into a little bit more control.
Mhm.
And because it is a process, especially because we have childhood programming, we have conditioning from our current relationship or past relationship. I also believe some of it is in our DNA. And
Mhm.
I use energy work as well sometimes to like clear the vessel out, and it really is a practice. And I actually moved away from saying balancing the masculine and feminine, and I'll tell you
Mm.
why.
Yeah.
When something's balanced, it's just like if you look at our screen right now, we've got your rectangle, my rectangle. It's a perfect balance.
Deepen.
But the truth is that life doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
There's a way when you work with me, you learn how to actually navigate your masculine and feminine when you need it. Because my goal is I want women to live more in the excitement and pleasure of life, even when they're trying to get the deal, right?
Yeah.
That they feel more like, how do they want to feel at the end of the day? How do you want to feel when you put your head on the pillow? How did you love? How did you live? How did you matter? How did you feel? Because when you
Yeah.
tap into that, life gets really exciting. So I do more about harmonization, and I'll use the analogy of like the word picture of a riverbed.
Okay.
A riverbed, more when you go from summer to fall, whenever the rapids start to fall and this and then and the water is moving, right? It's moving. The riverbed is the masculine, the water is the feminine. Even
Mm.
in the summer where you've got these big rapids, that's the feminine as well. I'm looking out of the water right now. We've got whitecaps, which is rare for the Gulf, right? Unless there's a storm coming. So, it's being able to ride the wave of our emotions without being swept away. And by the way, we want a partner who actually can be a redwood,
Mm.
there for it all, but not in a place where it's abusive. I find a lot of men, when they start doing this work and they start understanding the masculine feminine energetics, they're like, okay, I'm going to plant my feet and I can take everything that she brings. And they don't realize that actually that sometimes when we're in our expression, as I mentioned at the beginning of our call,
Yeah.
it can feel, depending on someone else's nervous system, it can feel abusive sometimes.
Yeah.
So but that's not fair. Also, we have to be mindful because everybody's different. Because just somebody crying,
Hmm.
big fat crocodile tears, these beautiful tears that I'm like, don't wipe those tears away. Let them fall in your cleavage. Let them fall on your bosom.
Yeah.
That is your heart expressing themselves. That could send a man or a woman, whoever's the more masculine being, what have you,
Yeah.
that they into a space of like, I don't want that. And how many of us, and now this was me too.
Hmm.
I did realize that my relationship with women was actually, I had a good relationship with women. I had lots of women that I was mentoring, like a lot of women I was mentoring in direct sales and such. But I realized too that if a woman was emotional, like feelings oriented, like basically like I am now, basically
Yeah.
uh, she annoyed me. She annoyed me. That annoyed the heck out of me because I'm like, oh, please. How many of us have been in a room where we're just annoyed by a woman who they feel flighty to us because they're either drinking their bubble water, like, oh gosh, mm, just basically enjoying their life.
Yeah.
You know what I
So
mean? I mean,
annoying.
like they're barefoot or they're skipping or they're laughing. And, it's this feeling of what does she have that I don't? And so the
Yeah.
toxic feminine will compare, right? I mentioned complain and criticize. And some of it's primal. I mean, it's primal because we needed to fit in back in the day. We needed to fit in order to feel safe.
Yeah.
That's why that whole mean girl, you can sit at my table thing is actually quite legit. Like, can
Yeah.
you sit at my table? Because it feels primally to the nervous system like we're going to die if we aren't liked to a certain degree. And as we
Yep.
get older and our hormones shift and what have you, and we get wiser, like, we're not going to die if, we're not invited to that party or
Yeah.
whatever it is. We're okay if they don't call us back or they ghost us or, whether it's the women or the men, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
But we don't know that when we're younger. So, I do like to say harmonization because there is a way that I can be talking to you now
Yep.
and I'm aware of my wind chimes, dinging because it's stormy. I can see my flag going. This is woman's diffused awareness. I know that the masculine in me walked my dog before we had our call. So she'd be a little tired, right? She had a bone. That's the masculine, but also making sure it's her favorite bone, which is the feminine, right?
Hmm.
And so that way she wouldn't come up and start pawing at me while I'm talking to you. So you can see how there's no balance in that. That's just awareness.
Yeah.
And there's, one of my courses, I mean, I talk about the first way to know that to know that you're ready for a change is to be aware that there needs to be a change. And a lot of times, and most of the time, there has to be enough pain in order
Hmm.
to make a change. And as I mentioned earlier, if I can catch women before they reach that heartbreak, great. But if not, if that's the impetus that brings you to this moment, then you know what? We're going to actually thank the trigger, thank the pain, and actually be able to even thank that trauma that may have happened to you as a child or even as an adult, because that may have been the very thing that led you to be sitting with me. Whether it's like this, and a lot of most of my clients I never even meet face to face unless
Mhm.
they come to a live event, or but to go deeper. It takes the desire to go deeper and want something different.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the hardest part to get to for a lot of people, I'm assuming, is
Yeah.
they know what they need to do. They know that they need some sort of help, but it's easier, I think, like you said, when they come in the last 5 minutes, it's easier just to give up than to put in the work and really try to
Yeah.
make a change, make a difference.
Yeah,
Is
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that and so, I'll share this too. And if you've listened to some of my material, there's a lot of teachings on my YouTube channel or even on Instagram, but we like to say there's three stages of relationship and there's
Mhm.
three stages of love. The first is that baby love, that baby relationship where, as babies, we needed all of our needs to be met by outwardly from someone else. We're totally living on our feelings, right?
Yeah.
And it's we're not even aware of how we could be affecting other people, around us. Are we going to cry because we're hungry, sad, our diaper change, whatever it
Yeah.
is. The second stage, though, is that healthy space of relationship where your needs are my needs and my needs are your needs, and we're able to have conversation that's very healthy. It's
Mhm.
a little depolarizing in some ways because there's not a lot of art to it. There's not a
Mhm.
lot of, and that's why a lot of times if women are feeling bored in their relationship, they'll pick a fight. They
Yeah.
pick a fight because they want energy. The feminine wants energy. We want to be stimulated, right? So that's why I work with women and help them have their own personal practice. So that way they're not looking for their partner to fill them up. They actually can, learn their own body. Or to me, self-care is not just about a bubble bath or getting our nails done. It's actually like for me, walking in the grass is pleasurable. Even the way I make my coffee in the morning, I've learned to make it pleasurable.
Hmm.
So I'm not just, so there's little nuances there that I teach you. So you don't just have to like learn something while we're talking to each other. You're
Right.
going to learn things so you become your own embodiment expert. You know what really lights you up and also what turns you on and turns you off. You know your yes, you know your no, and you literally become that version of yourself, the
Yeah.
best of yourself. The third stage, though, is that one when we know that we have a deeper relationship with Source, with God,
Mhm.
because that we're in this relationship, and because we learn to love, see them through the eyes of the divine, see
Yeah.
them through. And we're also willing to say the hard thing.
Mm.
How many of us have been at, and I'm using this one, I always say bunko, but I was in the mortgage business. I remember showing up at this new development where I was like what is it when you're like the key mortgage person? So you're there like in-house. Oh,
Oh, the
in-house loan.
loan officer.
Thank
Mhm.
you, loan
Loan
officer. Yeah.
originator. Mhm.
So I'm there like networking, and I heard across the room someone say, "One day they're gonna leave you too." And I looked at this woman, I was like, wow. This is before I started doing this work. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And as I got to know her, she had her husband had left her for someone else, had an affair. She was hurt, she was wounded. It was bunko, so there was
Mm.
alcohol and all the things. And it was like I just remember thinking, and this was 30 years ago, a long 25 years ago, it was a long time ago. But
Yeah.
I remember thinking, even then, like, ouch, I felt for her, like, ouch, I felt her pain. And I'm sharing that because she, and I remember people going, like, yeah, girl, he'll get his, and, you'll be fine, all like telling exactly,
Karma's a bitch.
yeah, exactly. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, karma's a bitch.
Yeah.
The friend that I am would be maybe not right then, I probably wouldn't be at a bunko thing with a lot of drinking right now. Not there's anything wrong with that, but I don't love big crowds anymore. I know that self-care for me is like I like a nice intimate situation where we can go
Mm.
deep, have deep conversations, and really just be in our own mojo. But and I also can go take me to a charity event and I'm fine there too. But my point is that the friend I am now, the friend my friend Rachel was when she said, "Girl, get your ass in front of Tony. You need to be in the spit zone. You need a man who's strong enough to face you. You haven't been with a man yet who's been either he's hit you because you thought that was strength,
Mm-hmm.
or he allowed you to boss him around. And so there's somewhere in the middle,
Yeah.
and I think you need to go get, base. And so that's what I did. She loved me enough. She risked the friendship because she told me what I needed to hear. And that's stage 3 in a romantic relationship. We call it, sacred union, where the feminine in us, because we have that beautiful intuition. We have the tie of the heart, the yoni, our brain. We tie it, mind, heart, body, soul, all together, and we're able to see things that our partner probably doesn't see. And then we bring it to him artfully. We bring it to him in a way that's
Mm.
not coaching, that's not "I told you so," that's not bitchy. One of my courses is called Sacred Respect, where you learn the art of how to respect your sons, the men in your life, your fathers, but even the masculine within yourself.
Huge.
Because most women that come to work with me, just like where I was, I was so out of sync, out of harmony, because I was all in my masculine. And I thought, to your point, that it was cool to not
Yeah.
need a man, because that's how my mom raised me.
Mm-hmm.
It's what my mama said, and
Yeah.
well, daddy
And
had left.
that's even a lot of the theories of today is like, you don't need a man, you're independent, you can be on your own, you don't, so we are in this place now where we feel like we don't need a man, I mean, and
Yeah.
that's okay. I mean, we
Yep.
do, we know we
Do
need
it.
them for certain
Well,
things, but
sister, I tell you, I haven't met a woman yet, and this may not be popular. Like, I like to say that I'm a feminist. I love our rights, and I
yeah,
also know that I really, actually, really dig men. I
yeah,
think men are wonderful, and I think we've
me
actually
too.
done them. Having a son, we've done them, who's 25, done to them a disservice for them to think not. I mean, how do you? I was at a mastermind on Necker Island a few months ago, and somebody asked this great question. They said, "What do you think is a trend right now, or a situation that's happening in the world that could backfire?" And
Mm.
I was like, God, I felt that calling, okay, again, I'm going to raise my hand. That's exactly how I got the trouble when I got raised my hand and Tony called on me. I said, and I did, and we went around the room. I said, I think gender equality, and I don't mean gender neutrality, where I don't mean the pronouns, but I mean where everybody gets a trophy,
Mm.
where we don't necessarily, and we don't want to necessarily acknowledge someone as a woman or a man. We don't want to have these roles, and it's confusing. And you
Very.
talk about polarity. I mean, the tides rise and fall, back to the beach again, because of the moon. And so if we don't know what a woman is or a man is, however you define it, then
Mm-hmm.
it's confusing. And I'm not getting political about it. I'm just saying, I think that in 20 years it's going to be an issue. It
Oh yeah.
might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just that I, even just for my son, when he was in school, that trophy for everyone, when people don't know loss, then they never know winning. And so how
Yeah.
in the world are you able to actually self-regulate if you've never experienced pain?
Mm.
Or,
Very
what
true.
I mean? So it was interesting, the conversation, because I mean, that could go so many different ways.
Yeah.
And I have my own feelings around all of that, but really, for me, I knew the first time my son was in school and they're like, no more winners, no more losers, it's all the same. I'm like, whoa, we're
Whoa.
in trouble. We pulled him out of that school, I know. Because there, it doesn't, it's and this is why so many women come to me now, and they're with a bunch of mama's boys, or
Hmm.
men who can't, go back to what we said, can't take criticism, everything. They don't know how to feel, that any adversity. And that's just not men. That's obviously our girls are struggling with that too. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. We've and I'm guilty of parenting like that too,
Yeah.
going through a divorce, and not wanting to lose my son's love, and maybe being a little flimsy with my boundaries, which your
Yeah.
boundaries, by the way, are your masculine. So
Hmm.
that's why it's interesting. A lot of people who come and work with me, it doesn't just affect you in your intimate life with your partner. It helps you with yourself. How you do anything is how you do everything, right? It helps you with your parenting. It helps you be a
Hmm.
friend. It helps you actually, like, slough off some of those friends that, quite frankly, you don't vibe with anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a
And
client
is,
call.
oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is there a way to set those boundaries still in your feminine way? You said it's kind of more of a masculine thing to set your boundaries. And that is, kind of a big thing, the words of the year. We've got gaslighting
Yes.
and
Yeah.
toxic, and boundaries is, a big
Right.
one. Everybody wants
Yes.
to set their boundaries. And I think that, sometimes we do it from a masculine side, like, oh no, I'm going to hold this hard and I'm not going to let him do this. But is there a way to also do that from a feminine perspective where it can be just a soft boundary? No, it's just, I don't want to
Yeah.
have sex with you on the first date. That's just not who I am. That's not what I do. I have more of a connection with people with sex. I know what happens to me if I have sex with somebody. Where does
Yes.
that lie?
Oh yeah. I mean, all of God, we could have a whole show about that for sure. I mean, I
Yeah.
have a whole in the dating intentionally course, we talk about boundaries because the toxic boundary, the toxic masculine is going to be no, because I said so. It's like a
Yeah.
wall. It's not even a boundary, but it's a wall. It's not penetrated at all.
Mhm.
Now, the reason why your feminine is involved in a boundary is that you know who the heck you are. If you
Mm.
know who you are, then you're in touch with your feminine anyway, your intuition, empathy, compassion, your right. It's
Yeah.
because remember, the masculine is consciousness. The masculine is consciousness. Masculine is like the knowing that you know that you know that you know that you know. It is the master of time and space, and it is the rectangle here that here it just knows.
Yeah.
The feminine, though, is the feeling into. The wall would be because I said so. The feminine is more of, well, yes, you said so, which is going to hold the boundary, but the feminine is how you got there in the first place.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because just saying because I'm a Christian, I'm not going to have sex before I got married. Well, is that really your belief? I mean, why do you believe that's okay? I'm just using that as an
Sure.
example. Or is it because I have plenty of people who will say that even they're older and they're like, okay, we're going to not have sex before we got married. And I'm like, okay, great. Help me understand, why that is. And I'm okay with whatever their answer is
Yeah.
because but I want them to actually know that they know why they believe what they believe. Are they just regurgitating because somebody else said so?
Yeah.
Right? Or they that's one example. What's something else that you hear out there in the world? If you throw something at me, I can take it. I can
Oh,
take it.
different boundaries and stuff
Yeah.
you're talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Uh, just your time within a week. I mean, I'm kind of in that right now with dating somebody, and I'm like, I am in a spot where I really like my independence right now. And so my boundary is that, yeah, we can spend the time together on the weekend, but when the week comes, I have things to do that I want to do. And I'm very like, I need this time this week. And it's very difficult for him because he's like, I kind of feel like we spend this weekend together and then you shoo me off until the next weekend.
Well, and by the way, it sounds that way.
It does.
And I would say if you share it like that, I mean, may I coach you here? Like,
Please, please.
so yes, that is your desire. That is your desire. And I would, if we were working together, I would ask you deeper, like what's underneath that experience of wanting to have your own time. And is it possible? There's a belief system in there somewhere. Is it possible that you actually could share more time with someone that you deeply care about and want to get to know, trusting that you know when it's time to basically lean back, whether it's
Mhm.
lean back in your own time, go to your own space or whatever that is. That's it's a little rigid and your
It
wall right
is.
now. And the way you even shared that here when you watch the replay, it isn't an invitation to me. Is like is what you're asking for. I have this recording that I'll send it to you just
Okay.
between you and me that I give
Yeah.
my paying clients, like how to ask a man for anything. And there's whether you
Perfect.
can ask for it in a way, it's not manipulative either. It's actually you get deep into what it would provide for you to be able to have whatever it is that you want.
Mhm.
So if if we were working together, we would go like, what does having your own time provide for you? Like, what is it that provides for you? And then what's the worst thing that happened if you happen to see him on a Tuesday? And I'm not
Yeah.
being funny. I'm like, really, what is it? And where in the past did someone actually monopolizing your time? Are you allowing them to? What happened? And when did you lose yourself? So
Mm.
we tease it apart because it sounds like this is a caring guy who really is into you and digging you. So it's not just black and white. It's not just
Mhm.
black and white. And the way that you can share that is, it really would mean a lot to me, and it would provide me security, safety, whatever it is, if we could, connect on here. I also recognize for myself, remember self-awareness,
Yeah.
emotion. is to go, I recognize that I can be a little rigid in my boundaries. I'm learning a new way of being.
Mhm.
Would you be willing to, to play with me here, and allow me to kind of mess it up a little bit, as I'm, dipping my toe in this water? That shows vulnerability. It's the
Mm.
same thing. You're not saying, yeah, come on over. Here's a key to my place. Here's a toothbrush. But it actually shows, do you get what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
vulnerability. And
Yes.
also, you still didn't give him the key to your place. You still only gonna see him on Friday, but it also lets him know that you're willing, because in the allowing, it's in
Mhm.
the, I mean, it gives me goosebumps. It's like in the allowing and the receiving, because this is a man that you obviously like if you're spending time with him, that really
Mhm.
wants to see you. I'm not saying you have to accept that from everybody, but you obviously want to see him. If
Yeah.
we were going deeper, I would say, why have that stance? Because even your body language, you were sharing that, you sat up
Right.
straight. Yeah, it's
I
like, yeah,
did.
it was, I got the Zoom redwood, be like, yo, this is it.
I did.
So it's not even about, and you could actually say thank you. You could
Yeah.
message him and go, I just did this interview, and wow, I want to say thank you for actually bringing this to me, because I recognize this is something from my past that I really want to pay attention to, and this isn't even about you. So thank you. I
Yeah.
I believe, because this is where the last 5% of healing happens in relationship,
Yeah.
even if he's not your forever guy, because these little whack-a-mole things, like, oh, there it is, oh, there it is, you could either pretend like it's not there, or we get to like tease it apart, look at it, because where else is that showing up in your life, where
Yeah.
you're actually shutting pleasure out because you're too afraid that you might, eat the entire gallon of ice cream versus just a couple scoops,
Yeah. No,
right?
I agree. You hit the nail on the head with it comes from, I know it's from my past relationship where I gave everything and I gave all my time and I did kind of lose myself and it was not appreciated. It was taken for granted. And then it was just oop,
Yeah.
done, And so now
And
I know
ouch.
that.
And ouch, by the way. First, I just want to say, and ouch, that does
Yeah.
hurt.
Oh,
It is
yeah.
painful. And it is painful. And the world's better. The world
Hmm.
is better for you to be able to feel into your yeses and your nos, and that that you, when it's like bobbing, like you can lean. The feminine is all about like bobbing. You know when to lean in, you know when to lean out,
Hmm.
it's like a constant dance. Like literally, most people are like, oh, the feminine is all about like dance and sensual expression. No, it's literally, for me, that's all great. And I teach that too. For
Yeah.
me, I have more fun working with women, like just like we are now, in the day
Yeah.
to day operations, including feeling into, was this going to be the right place for me to spend, a couple hours of my time,
Yeah.
with you like that. And I hope everybody feels that way. Offering to host a birthday party, for example, or offering to host Thanksgiving. Is that
Mhm.
really best for the world? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. And
Yeah.
so knowing what that looks like, feeling into it, not just, oh, that's going to make me happy. Happy, so generic.
Mhm.
Like, what else does it provide? And does it serve? So you could tell we could go on and on about that. And
Yeah.
by the way, and thank you for being vulnerable and trusting me just to go there,
Oh,
because we
yeah.
all it that's what I mean by the last 5% of healing happens. And some people think that that means they stay in that relationship to heal that last 5%. Sometimes relationships are that, it's that relationship that's going to tip it, so you can realize, like, I really do need more communication. I didn't know that
Mhm.
going into this. Especially as we get older, I think the rules change a bit as we get older. And in my opinion, we get older, and
Yeah.
yes, we want to have that forever partner. And sometimes what we realize, that this person may not want to play. I must be. I do this exercise, like she who must. And
Mhm.
but we have to first off find out, like, we have to weed through the grass of all the things that you're not, and that you
Yeah.
used to be, but it doesn't fit. Like, that doesn't fit me anymore. And then it's like she who must. And I'm like a she who must. She who must be ravished, she who must be protected, she who must be provided for. And I'm not talking
Mhm.
about money necessarily. I'm talking about provision of safety,
Yep.
provision of trust. Um, she, and then I'll back up and go, she who must be protected. Then I'll go, well, before we even get to the relationship, if I have the privilege of working with someone who's single, we do a whole lot of work before we get to the dating piece. It's like energetically, how you show up in this. It's like, so she who must be protected. Okay, where are
Yeah.
you not protecting yourself now? Do you have an alarm system? Do you lock the door at night? Do you
Mm.
keep keys in the car? Do you have all your, I mean, are you up to date with all your medical? When's the last time you had a mammogram?
Mm.
So do you see what I mean? That's like
Yeah.
healing your own masculine energy. So we do a whole process around that. And even with women who've been married 25, 30 years, some of my faves, because they're so used to giving it all away to their family. Or I have a lot of women, quite frankly, now more women that I'm surprised by who chose, I'll say, I'll empower them. They chose to forego having a family for their career.
Hmm.
And now they have their glass of Chardonnay and they have their red bottom shoes, but they're
Yep.
actually realizing that it wasn't necessarily worth it. Some women are fine with that, and that's
Yeah.
fine too. But the women that come to me like, what happened there? So we tease that apart, and then how can they find the pleasure and accepting that they made those decisions without feeling like a victim, and then also be able to date from that empowered place.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah. And well, I mean, that whole conversation with the guy happened this morning.
Oh,
So,
did it?
yeah, yeah. It literally happened where he was like, well, I just feel like, we're this weekend and then it goes and whatever. And so I did agree to see him tonight. And I got a very lovely text after saying that, that means the world to me. That so chipping away. I'm trying.
Well, and it is really too, and that's where it's what I would say too is that there's a way that texting's so fun, and a lot sometimes it can be a nightmare, but it can be fun because there's such a
Yeah.
way as I'm teaching women how to be expressed, that there's a way whoever's talking more in that
Hmm.
moment is generally probably more in their feminine in the moment, including
Hmm.
men on our date. So whoever's pursuing is more in their masculine too. And I know it doesn't matter how successful a woman is, and I started to say this, but I started to about something else, is how successful a woman is and how independent they are and how much they don't think they need a man. But when I ask them and really get down to the root of it, once I chip away and we break into their heart and they let me see them, you know, they actually really do want to be provided for. They
Mm.
really do want to know that they know that they know that they're protected. They do want to know they can't get away with their own bullshit. They want to
Yeah.
know they can't, that they're not going to be able to walk all over this person or manipulate. But there's a reason why you and I both chose men in the past that we could be the bosses of. We
Mhm.
could. And you know what? There might be, just something to pay attention to in this. I mean, this is a guy who brought it to your attention. If he would have allowed that to continue, where he's foregoing his own needs, just like I've done, just like you've done, just like people in the audience. And if you say you haven't, then you're not being honest. That's
Yes.
a whole nother thing you can look at. But right. I mean, that will cause you to lose respect because what we're doing, we're
Yeah.
testing. The feminine test. Can I
Yeah.
trust you? Can I trust you? Can I trust you? Are you my man? Are you the man that I can give my heart to? Like, are you my mother? And it's true. It's what we do. And I had no idea that's what we were doing. And the more unsure we are of who we are, the
Yeah.
more we'll choose men that we test, that we test. So what I like to do is get really clear about what it is that who do you want to be in this relationship?
Mm.
Who do you want to be at the end of this relationship, whether it's the end of relationship in a breakup or in a death or whatever it is? How do we want to show up? Because it's in our being. The being is our feminine. It's in the doing of how do we get there. So many women who come to work with me initially, they're already so in their masculine because the masculine looks for a solution. The
Mm.
masculine wants to fix it. I've got something I need to do. And then my job is like, great, we got you here. Now let's get into the experiencing of yourself. But
Mm.
because if we were just in our feminine, we'd be enjoying everything and not making any decisions. And we wouldn't make a decision to even like sign with a mentor or a coach or a therapist or whatever. We
Yeah.
would just floating around. And, you know, that's great up to a point, but it doesn't necessarily get things done. So you'll see a lot of women who learn about the masculine and feminine, and all of a sudden they're trying to do it the way we got into the problem in the first place. And like
Yeah.
Einstein said, you cannot solve a problem the same way you created it. You can't.
Yeah.
So, but it starts with, that's how we get here. And then what the art of the SakredShe Method is like, what do we do in the midst of it all? Because there's so many nuances um, but at the end of the day, it's all generally the same. So it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if someone, like I said, is already in partnership or they're just dating. And to me, it's about I remember when COVID happened and I say opened up, but people were at home.
Yeah.
They were dating online and so many people were complaining about it. I'm like, are you kidding me? How much fun is that? You get to like, because I teach women that if he shows up looking like what's that called? Catfishing, when someone shows
Yes.
up, they
Not themselves.
catfish
Yeah.
you. Yeah, they catfish you, and you're like, there's a way that you can be an oracle for him. You can sting him back to consciousness. That's what I believe our feminine does. We sting the masculine back to consciousness. We could be bitchy and go like, oh, please, and close the computer, be done.
Yeah.
Or like, wow, like, wow. It's like, wow. Like, I'm curious. I've really spent it's really important to me. Trust is one of my top 5 qualities that I must have in a relationship. And I've had a history in the past of choosing men that turned out that I couldn't trust, which made me not trust myself.
Hmm.
And so I'm curious as I'm looking at you now, you know, what would cause you to not want to like give me a more recent picture of yourself?
Yeah.
Because I believe how we do anything is how we do everything. And if you're not going to reveal this, if this is the best it's ever going to get, like some people say, I don't ascribe to that, but why would you not show up as exactly who you are? And that makes me question it because you know what? I think you're attractive. I
Yeah.
may have shown up. I really love the way we gave good phone or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I go, so I just wanted to say that. And I mean, I've literally done this
I
live.
love it.
I mean, you know where kind of where I live at Charlie's in Tampa. I was like,
Yeah.
I've done that before. I'm like, and I went out and I said, I'm going to end this date right now. And I could go, the like I know that I heard women that go to the bathroom and then they just leave, but it's like, no, I'm going to actually show up and share. Now I have done that too before when I actually left and then I go like, why did I do that? And then I reach back out like, what did I do that for? Back before I really started doing this work and healing
Yeah.
it. But now it's like, no, every opportunity is an opportunity for us to learn or to teach or what have you. And so I hope that that man never does that again.
Yeah, I love that, Sandy, because we all do that. We're so quick to, oh, block them. I see that all the time when people are complaining about, oh, this guy, and it might be something just so simple, oh, he canceled on our date last minute, whatever. And, then everybody's response is block him and move on. That's like the first thing to do. And it's
And
like, well, yeah, like you said, let's dive a little deeper into that and find out, maybe there is something going on there on his end that he had to do that, but also, like you said, do a little bit of the stinger back to make him think twice, because that's just going to help him going forward on the next one, whether you guys go out
otherwise,
again.
I mean, let's say we force ourselves to stay through the entire dinner or coffee, and he's thinking like, yeah,
Yeah,
and he never knows. Or I
totally.
like stage 3 dating to me, like I mentioned the stages. Let me know.
Yeah.
I want to the masculine in me wants to like fix it all. Like I want to be the most perfect woman out there in the universe. Like the best. So let me know. And that's why when we're in workshop,
Yep.
how we give feedback is and in women's work, I can always tell when a woman hasn't done women's work. It's because they just offer unsolicited advice. So you'll notice that I'll say, remember I said, are you open to some coaching? Can I
Yeah.
coach you right now?
Yeah.
If we were working together like officially, I wouldn't ask that. It would just be all full on. But I mean, but since we're not, it's like, are you open to some coaching or say, are you open to a reflection? Are you open to some feedback?
Yeah.
Because not everybody wants to hear what the heck we have to say.
Hmm.
And so, but if you're on a date with someone, to me, that's like, may I ask you a question?
Yeah.
You are you because are you open to me sharing something? If they're like, no, well, that says something there. It doesn't mean that
Yeah.
everybody needs to hear that, but if he would have said, I'll go back to that example. If he would have said no, I would have said, well, listen, I really need to share this.
Hmm.
I really need to share this because and then I go into my thing and I just want
Hmm.
you to know, I'm leaving and I'm leaving right now. I'm going to get up and I'm going to leave.
Hmm.
That would, that serves because we've made it so accessible to exit stage left that
Yeah.
we're not sticking through the hard times. Now, it is a trauma response to stay too long. And that was
Hmm.
me staying too long. Betrayal trauma is real, where you literally, like I mentioned, I think at the beginning of this call, where our nervous system literally will not allow us to see what's right in front of us, even though I'm this embodiment expert and I like I had a reel that went viral, like 15 million people. It was around like, what's your body trying to tell you? And
Mm.
it's like your body is trying to like, hello. hello. And if we don't want to see it because we can't see it because of whatever reason, or our world is going to be turned upside down if we actually are pay attention to the fact
Yeah.
that, did I see lipstick on his collar? Oh no, I
Mm,
didn't see lipstick on his collar. Was that perfect? Oh no,
yeah.
because and our brain is made to keep us safe, not happy. Our brain is here to help us survive. And if that means we have to ignore what's going on around us because it brings up something from the past, I mean, we've all done it, including me. And
Mhm.
so betrayal comes in all kind of different forms depending on your background. I mean, I know for me, where I come from, and I'm going to cancel this in the universe. I don't want this to happen, but I would rather someone cheat on me with a lover than
Yes.
actually not pay the bills because our house foreclosed. Daddy wasn't with us. My whole life changed at 12. That would have been a lot easier for me if somebody would actually cheat on me. And I've had that happen too,
Yeah.
um, in my past. But but that's my wound. That's not going to be the same for others. And when you're dating, to be able to share those things and know that that if your partner, for example, if that's their hot trigger, then and they're financially irresponsible, or maybe they just accidentally didn't pay the bill, they go, hey babe, I just want to let you know that this happened. And I know that this was really something from your past too. And I want to let you know so we weren't surprised. How loving is that?
Very, very,
It's
but
like,
it goes back to the communication, right?
right, and the emotional intelligence. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
I would rather be alone. And we go through that, like she who must be. I'll have this too. I'd rather be alone than be with a partner who is unwilling to
Mhm.
practice radical honesty and effective communication. I would rather be alone than be in a situation where I'm having to do is to get them to talk to me. Like, no, I'm way too no, like absolutely not. And so
Yeah.
um
Well, and I think that plays even into, I talk about this a lot in the bedroom, just about being your true authentic self. We tend to, as women, and I'm going through this now, a lot of women, we can get into this whole conversation
yeah,
later, but like a lot of women don't orgasm during, sexual encounters.
yeah,
And we've gotten in this space where it's happened to me in the past where I am just faking it because it's easier for me to do
yeah,
that. And than actually having that hard conversation, feeling embarrassed, continuing on, like just sitting there like, this is never
yes,
gonna, I might as well just do that and move on. And I've really learned from that. Like when you are true and
great.
authentic to that, yeah, it may not happen, but you're going to have these open conversations now around that topic. And how do we get you to that place? And what can we do differently rather
Yes.
than just pretending and faking it, and then they go off onto the next woman and thinking their
It's
life,
no
"Wow,
different.
I'm
It's
so
no
good."
different than the catfish. It's no different. And so I would even
Yes.
invite and say, listen, energetically, literally. I mean, it is scientific that when we are penetrated, I
Mhm.
mean, when a man enters us,
Mhm.
we hold on to them for 90 days. The reason why men can have sex and just go on to the next is because chemically they literally don't feel us. They don't attach to us. They're penetrating us. They're inside of
Inside of
us.
us. And we have all
I mean,
those oxytocins and
it's not
everything that
it's
ride
not in
up.
90 days. They're just carrying it on. So I would say even before you get to the point where you are having, because listen, they teach women how to have the most amazing self-pleasure practice. And I don't
Mhm.
mean just getting off an orgasm, but literally like when's the last time you actually touched your breast or you
Mhm.
actually allowed yourself to touch your neck in a way. I mean, I don't know about you, but I love to have my neck, my face touched, and then
Oh,
like
yeah, me too.
I like being held right here, all of that. But I've learned how to do that for myself
Yeah.
long before I ever met John. But I learned that through this work over this last 12 years I've studied where I mean, I learned how to have a clitoral orgasm years ago, but no one ever
Yeah.
taught me how to have an orgasm from the cervix or
Yeah.
even spiritual orgasm. But it starts with us knowing our body. So I would invite you and anybody listening that before we even allow somebody in the spacesuit, even
Mhm.
allow them to touch this vessel, that we are able to have that conversation. That if we want someone to move a little bit left, is how we actually. It's not just telling them like, "Hey, move left." It's more like the way we actually can even move our body in a way that they can't help but touch us there. There's a way that we can speak. I help women communicate better with using fewer words. And so there's even a way to do that in the bedroom. There's a way to even say, ouch. Ouch is a great word. There's a
Yeah.
way If you're feeling joy, learn how to skip. There's
Mm.
literally train your body to experience more joy. And so the less directive we are, but the more that we share what our desires are by how we actually are living our life, the right person who we can have that conversation would be. Like, I would never want to be in the bedroom with someone that I couldn't say, ouch, if they're hurting me, or, moving my body if I want to actually like, move positions. But, for you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't, we could go, we could go. I have a feeling you and I could like take it all kinds of places.
I
Like,
know. I'm like, wow, I haven't even hit any of my questions here. This is great. I'm like, and we're done. No, I love it. It's great because I want to have you back because I have so many things like literally we haven't talked about any of it and I love it because it's so much great information and it's the real raw stuff that I want. I told you before we started that I really love an interview that just goes in a conversation flow where we take it where it needs to go, and those I think are the most helpful moments for the listeners
thank
because
you.
it's unexpected things, that are answered. And I found myself a lot of times listening to podcasts, and when it goes in a direction that I wasn't expecting is when I get the most out of it
Sure.
and I get the most results. So I thank you for going that route
Well,
with me.
that's a good metaphor for life too, right? When
Yeah.
we allow us to be in flow and we have less resistance. I mean, that's the law of attraction, right? That is
Mhm.
that is what, Abraham Hicks, that's the quantum physics. That is what it is. And that is, allowing the allowance. I mean, we talk about in Sacred Sheet this quadrant of change, and it's
Mhm.
not that original. I've learned it from all these different teachers, but first to be aware, as I mentioned earlier, and then there's something about acknowledgement, like in the Bible, two people that come together. So
Yeah.
you and I coming together, experiencing this allows it to be real. It's like a tree falling in the woods. Did it really
Yeah.
happen if someone heard it? You go figure. Then what happens energetically is there's an acceptance that happens, which then becomes the allowing. And so those 4 A's right there is really, if you master those, that's quality of life exhaled. I mean, you exacerbate so much pleasure, so much amazingness, because first to be aware,
Mhm.
then to acknowledge it, right? Then you learn that they accept it.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, it is what it is. Like, it is what it is. And then the allowing, and then rinse, repeat, rinse,
Mm.
repeat, rinse, repeat. And it's magic. So even in the pain, hell, even in our suffering, if we're choosing suffering, there is a reason we're getting something out of it. And so I
Yeah.
help you break it down and go, okay, so what are you getting out of this? Choosing the same partner over and over again. What are you creating internally that's causing you to attract that? Because I do believe that we keep, just like me, I'm no different. If I have to look at patterns in my life, I mean, even today, something happened. I'm like, oh yeah, that's where that came from. You
Yeah.
know, and I have a great mentor who's really lovingly calling me out when I'm not showing up as my higher self. But that's that
Which is
stage three.
huge.
That's that stage 3 for
Yeah,
sure, for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we go, because I don't want to go on too far, and I would
Yeah.
honestly love to have you back to talk about a lot of this other stuff that we didn't touch on. But you do talk about the radical mindset of how we do anything is how we do everything.
Yeah.
And I think that was, and that would be kind of a great way to end on this because I want to talk about how embracing this mindset can help transform like your everyday moments into deeper experiences and help contribute to your relationships and your life going forward.
Well, I think you go back to what I was just sharing. I mean, how we do anything is how we do everything. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of like but how do you pay your bills? How do you
Mm.
pay your bills on time? Do you show up? One of your hot buttons is that you want someone to be timely, but are you timely? Everything's a mirror match. Everything's a mirror match. If you're triggered by someone, it's because there's something in them that actually is evoking that within yourself.
Mm.
So if I am you know how do I say this? You go back to the four
Or
A's.
it is. Mhm.
Right. Really, I mean, it's like, so anytime that something that feels off, I go, okay, wait a minute, am I aware of this? And then I go through these 4 A's. And I also ask myself these 4 questions are, is it true? Is it really true? How do I show up believing this thought? It's actually being curious. The feminine allows us to be curious. We want to know more. And
Mm.
so when I say how we do anything is how we do everything, it's like, do you cheat on your taxes? even just a little bit? Did
Mhm.
you, no, I would never do that. Well, did you flub on your home warranty? So get that
Mhm.
dishwasher covered? Have you been cheated on? I mean, we
Yeah.
call in these things. I mean, listen, I mean, I'm not Pollyanna, trust me. But I do, whenever I'm recognizing there's some discord in my life, I I do my best not to blame another person. I
Mm.
actually really go deep and go, where is this coming from? So it really is the deeper inquiry of where else is this showing up in my life, or what is this trying to teach me?
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. That is so great. I love everything that you had to say today.
Oh,
And
I received that. Thank you.
I know, and I would love for you to tell everybody where they can find you, your
Sure.
social media handles. Give it to us all.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's Sandy Sembler on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, on YouTube, on gosh, where else am I? Oh, on Instagram
Mhm.
and Facebook for sure. I do have a beautiful, we have a beautiful way that people can tap into. Like in a weekend, you could learn a lot of the things I'm teaching you here, and the awakened, the awakening your feminine. I know we have a link for that as
Mm,
well. But Sandy Sembler is the best thing. And also sandysembler.com/quiz. So
exactly
free
that.
way to tap into some deep, deep inquiry here. And I work with women in groups, and I also work with women one-on-one. And then I have those DIY courses I talked about where you can learn a lot in an entire weekend,
Yeah.
in your own pace. But I really love, being able to, this is like a group session that I have, except there's specific
Yeah.
questions women will bring in, and then we go deeper because I really want women to and be empowered, and
Mm,
not just have me sharing. I want to teach you things that actually will allow you to be able to empower your own being, finding that pleasure, finding your yeses, finding your no.
mhm.
Because these are all things I've learned along the way, and so I've packaged them all up to give them back to women.
Oh, it's perfect. And I know I'll be jumping on to do that quiz because I need
Good.
a little work.
Well, this was great. Thank you for playing ball. Thank you for playing ball. I would love to come back and us share some other things, and we can talk. We can talk outside of this
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
It'd
So
be
before
great.
you go, I'd like to do a little from Mrs. to Ms. fun facts.
Okay.
Would you rather? So it's just 10 little
Okay.
questions of what you would rather do, relationship
Okay.
driven. Just give me whatever comes to your mind.
Okay.
Number one, would you rather have an adventurous date exploring a new city together or a cozy night in with a homemade dinner and a movie?
Yes.
All of the above.
The feminine is like, yes, the feminine wants more. So I'm like, probably N though. N.
Yes.
Yeah.
If on a deserted island, would you rather sunset skinny dip or midnight beach bonfire?
Skinny dip at night.
Fun, fun. Number three, would you rather prioritize aligning your personal purpose with your partner's goals or maintain separate paths that occasionally intersect and enhance each other's growth?
Oh, I believe that I am here to be a beacon of light
Mm,
for in everything I do, and my life is my dharma. So whatever I'm experiencing, yes, bring it forth with
bring
my partner or not. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. Would you rather explore a new adventurous activity with your partner that gets your heart racing or enjoy a slow, sensual evening of pampering and connection?
Gosh, I'm so feminine. I like it all. So the first one to me is a great way to connect and then be so exhausted that we come home and just like collapse into
Just,
each other.
oh, that sounds hot. I like it. Number five, blindfolded surprises or playful role play?
Girl, I love them all. This is so good. I'm like, wow.
I know you're
I'm
gonna.
like, I love them, but I love, wow.
Are you a
Um,
big role player?
well, that's what we do. We call it sacred theater. So we literally,
Oh,
because the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. So like I could hold the masculine pole for you and we could play. Like I could hold the Zoom redwood and I could literally have you as strong as you think you are. I
uh-huh.
could have you melting. I don't mean just like sexually, but I mean just like, ah,
Ah.
you relax. And we do that enough, by the way, that
Mhm.
actually what happens is the body becomes attuned to that. So when we have live workshops, we definitely do that. And we'll do practice for 45 minutes with your partner. I mean, I have some, when you're in a relationship that you want to share, I have practices that you could do at home together
Ooh,
that aren't necessarily, they're not necessarily, I mean, some are sexual when you go deeper in the advanced work, but
sure.
I mean, just forget that stuff. That stuff I mean, like the stuff that you actually deeply get, he can help you
Mhm.
attune to
Mental
deepening.
stimulation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And really more like within the body as well. Like like I need you and I want you to need me. And you go back
Yeah.
and forth, you feel it, and there's flavors, there's different flavors. I believe there's 10 women, which we didn't even talk about,
Yeah.
10 women that live inside of us. There's 10 women, and they all have a name, they all have a personality, and it's not like weird Sybil like. It's like, my little girl, which didn't even, I
Mm.
can't, you're like maybe the first person I never talked about. Tammy. Tammy is like my teenager. She's like my teenager who ran the show, who was pissed off. Most people talk about their inner child.
Yeah.
My I call her my little girl. That's Simone.
Uh-huh.
I'm talking about then their Tammy is your inner teenager. And I like to work with our inner teenager too, because she's the one that really gets forgotten. And she's the one that's pissed off at the world. So
Oh.
she's one of the 10.
Oh, I love that. You're so right, because we tend to go back to how we were as a child, and we talk all about that and your little Simone back in the
Yeah,
time, but we
yeah.
do forget about Tammy.
Yeah, I won't let you forget it.
Interesting.
But yours would be
I,
your Tammy would be named something else. We get to know them. So within
yeah.
SakredShe, like we get to know them all. And then it's fun when you get close enough to a partner, or you trust yourself enough that your partner gets to know. It's like, who am I talking to right now? And then you have fun
Uh,
with it. So it's pretty fascinating for
oh,
sure.
very cool. Well, I'm
Yeah.
going to leave it there because I do
Yeah.
have more questions, but I'm going to save
Let's,
them for, because I
let's
know
do it
you,
for next
yeah,
time.
because I
Yes.
know it. I
Yeah.
know it.
Very good though. Very good.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. This was amazing. I loved being here. It went by so fast.
It did. It did. Thank you so much for joining me. I know that the audience is going to love listening to this, because there's a lot of really great nuggets in there that I hope that they'll take and use within their own lives, and reach out to you for, I mean, we'll have all of your information in the show notes, so they'll be able to get that. But thank
Perfect.
you guys for listening to us this week. I hope you got everything out of it that I did. So you can find me on any major streaming platform. I'm on social media at from.mrs.to.ms. Email me with questions at info@frommrs.to.ms.net. I love hearing from you guys, so please do that. And you guys have yourselves a great week. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye. So good.